is this moment when we come together for a unified project. Let's continue to keep this tempo going.
Thank you, Joyce. That was perfectly done and all without notes. That's amazing. Very good. At this time, I'd like to introduce Park Ranger Elizabeth Laney. She's with Redcliffe Plantation State Historical Site in Beach Island. Elizabeth.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm not used to using a microphone, so if it sounds like I'm shouting, that's just because I'm used to using my regular voice here. I'm so honored to be here this morning because not only of some of the stories that have been uncovered here, the people that I know that we're here to honor today in this cemetery, but because it's had an impact on me personally as well, discovering those stories. I came to Redcliffe Plantation just right across the river in Beach Island, South Carolina in 2007, and I made my first visit to Cedar Grove Cemetery about a year later in 2008. Now, when I go to a cemetery doing historic research, I like to do as little research as possible before going to that cemetery and come out on the hottest day with no sunscreen and no hat. Usually because I see the cemetery and just turn in, but I did come out here in 2008 looking for a specific burial. I came out looking for Mr. Clarence Wigfall because I knew that Clarence's father, Dennis, had been born enslaved at Redcliffe Plantation during the Civil War, but had later moved to Augusta and made quite a name for himself. I knew Clarence was over here. I did not know about the Cedar Grove book, which would have shown me exactly where he lay, so I came out and walked around the cemetery looking for him. And as many of you might have done as you go out to cemeteries like this doing research, sometimes you just get a feeling, a little prickling along the back of your neck. And as I came over to a section right over in this upper corner, I got a little prickling on my neck, and I turned around and I saw the name Wigfall on a tombstone. But it was not that of Clarence Wigfall. It was that of his father, Dennis, who I had no idea was buried in the cemetery. I went over to Dennis's grave and I knelt down in front of it, saw his name there. 1861 to 1913, saw that the only thing he wanted listed on his tombstone was that he was the deacon of Springfield Baptist Church for 25 years. And I started crying. I had come looking for his son, and I had found this man who had been born at the historic site that I was researching. And for the first time, we were really beginning to recognize not just a group of people, enslaved laborers or paid employees that had worked at Redcliffe Plantation over the centuries. We were starting to begin to look at the individuals, what were their stories. And for me, the stories did not end at them being at Redcliffe and then leaving Redcliffe. For me, I followed them wherever they went. And as we started researching not just Redcliffe, but several other plantations in Beach Island, I started to notice a pattern. There were many families that after the end of the Civil War began moving to Augusta. Why? It's 10 miles away. There were great opportunities for African-American families following the Civil War, and we've managed to trace at least 10 different families from the Hammond plantations in Beach Island, South Carolina over here, and I'm sure that if I had the time to research all the African-American families in that area, we would see an even greater migration from that part of South Carolina over to Augusta, Georgia. Dennis Wigfall moved here in 1880, and he's listed on the 1880 census as a loafer. Now, when I first saw that, I was like, okay, does it mean he's doing nothing, or does it mean he's making bread? Or as I began to piece together his history, though, I saw that he was working or living in the store of an E.W. Jaworski, who is a white grocery store owner in the area. And I figured that the fact that Dennis was listed as loafer, and this is an educated guess, but I figured that it might mean that he had arrived in the city for the first time. He'd gotten a job, but it wasn't quite official yet. He works for E.W. Jaworski running errands for 20 years. He doesn't quit that job running errands until he's 40 years old. But as I began to research Dennis and his history in Augusta, Georgia even further, I found something incredible. He wasn't running errands for 20 years. He was getting involved politically. He was becoming a leader in the local black community. He was becoming a deacon at Springfield Baptist Church. And when he quit his job running errands for that white grocery store in 1903, the very next year he appeared in the Augusta City Business Directory as the owner of his own grocery store. And his children became leaders in business, politics, and education, became associated with the Walker Institute, with Pilgrim Life Insurance, and just about any other historic black institution you can name in the area. And some of you may still remember remember, but Dennis's son Clarence eventually had a grocery store on Laney Walker Boulevard, at that time Gwinnett Avenue, slightly near Tabernacle. It's gone today. But we are very proud to be telling the story of the Wigfall family and all the many African American families who migrated to Augusta, Georgia in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. I've brought along the story of the Wigfall family with me here today, so if anyone's interested later on, you can see me and pick up a copy. But I'm just so happy to be honored to stay here today and to honor the Wigfall family, honor the DeWalt family who are buried here, as well as all the many others. And thank you all so much for having me today.